My mother was discarded, divorced, left with nothing. The architect of her ruin was my own aunt, Vivienne. Because my mother only wanted custody of me, her child, Vivienne ruthlessly maneuvered her into walking away penniless. On the day of the court's final judgment, in front of everyone, I declared I wanted to live with my father. I was 12 years old then. My quest for vengeance was just beginning. The woman who clawed her way up was my mother's younger sister. That year, Vivienne was only 26, possessing a captivating beauty, a sinuous figure, and eyes that held a vixen's allure. Yet, despite this beauty, she remained unmarried. Most likely because she had a young daughter, Susan, whose father was a mystery. My grandparents had worried endlessly about her. On their deathbeds, they pleaded with my mother to look after her immature, younger sister. Bound by that final wish, my kind-hearted mother took Vivienne under her wing, never imagining her sister would climb into her husband's bed. My mother, always gentle and refined, couldn't bear the sight of the betrayal. She fell ill, weakened by grief. I still remember, even as a child, the spectacle Vivienne made by mother's bedside, tears streaming down her face. Sister, I truly couldn't help myself. It was overwhelming. Besides, Arthur. Brother-in-law, and I have had feelings for each other for years. And it's not like this is the first time for him, you know. A single paternity test shattered the last vestiges of my mother's love and trust. It turned out my fatherless cousin, Susan, was actually my half-sister. The double betrayal, by her husband and her own sister, crushed my mother, leaving her bedridden and frail. Vivienne was still Vivienne, but now I saw the wolf's eyes gleaming beneath the sheepskin. In that instant, it felt as though my childhood evaporated. That summer felt suffocatingly long. Vivienne visited often, always weeping, pleading with my mother to think of the children and not make a fuss. Just when my mother, perhaps clinging to a shred of hope in her sister's conscience, considered handling things internally, for my sake, Vivienne revealed her true intentions. Sister, just divorce him. Your daughter has enjoyed 10 years of family warmth. It's time for my Susan to have her turn. Susan, quickly, beg your Auntie Eleanor. She dragged the 5-year-old Susan to my mother's bedside. Auntie Eleanor, please be nice, Susan parroted, her performance disturbingly convincing for a child. You already have Chloe. Please give Susan her daddy back. She even managed to produce real tears, bowing clumsily. Shameless. Absolutely shameless. Though my mother was tormented, the situation was undeniable. In Vivienne's calculating eyes, this gave her leverage. She quit the job mother had helped her find and practically moved into our house, relentlessly demanding a resolution. The child is here. Do what you will, Vivienne declared dramatically, pushing Susan forward as if offering her up for sacrifice. Auntie, please don't hit me, Susan sobbed on cue, her eyes like faucets, turning on tears with practiced skill. Our home descended into a cacophony of a child's staged crying and Vivienne's shrewish demands. The atmosphere was thick with tension and anxiety. Surrounded by this, my mother grew increasingly agitated. Over the next few days, I overheard fragments of arguments between her and my father. Ugly truths surfaced, painting a sordid picture of adult deceit. Sleep evaded me. Night after night, I wandered the halls of our old family mansion. My father's family had been merchants for generations. By his time, they were considerably wealthy. This house, inherited from my grandparents, was where I'd always lived. Even though parts of the woodwork were decaying, my father refused to renovate, sealing off rooms rather than altering the structure. Too many childhood memories here, he'd say. It wouldn't feel the same. My father had always seemed sentimental, devoted, treating my mother with tenderness. Honestly, my childhood dream was to marry a man just like him. But stripped of the rosy filter, the reality of my father was uglier than I could have imagined. Downstairs, near the landing, I saw him sitting alone at the bar, nursing a drink. The past few weeks of exhaustion had aged him visibly. Arthur, still awake? A soft, feminine voice drifted up. Even in the dim light, I recognized the silhouette I expected. Vivienne, draped in a pale green silk nightgown, stretched languidly, her figure sinuous and alluring. Under the low lamp. Can't sleep. Care to join me for a drink? She held a bottle in one hand, a delicate wine glass dangling from the fingers of the other. Years later, I often wondered how my father fell for it. The only answer I could find was the inherent frailty of human nature. Moments of intense focus often breed vulnerability. to distraction. There's no such thing as absolute rationality, especially when temptation dangles so invitingly. Fighting against basic human desire is a losing battle. Once Susan's paternity was revealed, Vivienne moved in permanently, no longer needing pretense. My mother visibly declined day by day, her response limited to silent tears. Vivienne, with chilling speed, embedded herself into our household. She systematically replaced the long-serving maids and driver. By the time Mother realized what was happening, she was isolated, surrounded by strangers loyal only to Vivienne. My father, likely tired of the arguments, retreated to the sanctuary of his company, leaving Mother and me alone to face the invasion. At the dinner table, Vivienne and Susan acted like the true mistresses of the house, even taking Mother's and my usual seats. "What exactly do you want?" Mother finally confronted her, her spirit nearly broken. Vivienne simply smiled, that unnerving glint in her eyes. "Sister, I just want a better life for my Susan. You're a mother, surely you understand." Her foxy eyes crinkled, but the underlying malice sent shivers down my spine. It wasn't just my mother Vivienne targeted. Susan began her own subtle campaign against me. Claiming she loved my room, she moved in, insisting we share. She didn't kick me out. She wanted proximity, a constant reminder of her presence. Every evening after dinner, she'd make a show of calling Father's office, only to hang up abruptly when I entered the room. "Chloe," she'd say with false sweetness, "you know, growing up, I always envied you. Every time I visited Grandma's, you had new clothes." Her eyes would gleam. "I used to wish you'd grow faster so I could have your hand-me-downs." She held up a dress, preening. "But now, I have new clothes too." It was a floral maxi dress, clearly my size, hanging loosely on her smaller frame. Susan's behavior was erratic, designed to torment me. Finally, Mother couldn't endure it any longer. She sat Vivienne down for a final confrontation, asking bluntly what it would take for her to leave. I expected rage, perhaps violence. Instead, the unexpected happened. "I'm leaving this afternoon." "I've already bought the tickets," Vivienne stated calmly. Both Mother and I were stunned into silence. "Sister, take care of yourself." "Are you really?" Mother stammered. "Really? I mean it. I wouldn't come back even if you begged me." The next day, Vivienne and Susan were gone. It happened so fast, the relief felt almost unreal, disturbingly light. "Chloe," Mother said, her comforting smile looking weak and strained. "Everything that happened, it's over now." Looking back at those months, it felt like a nightmare. An autumn breeze rustled the leaves outside. The potted plant Vivienne had brought as a gift had grown, its leaves swaying. Wasps don't abandon their nests so readily. Could she really leave so cleanly? My suspicion was confirmed 3 days later. My father, who had been avoiding the house for weeks, finally returned, specifically to argue with my mother. It turned out Vivienne had anonymously reported him for financial irregularities. "If my friend at the exchange hadn't tipped me off, do you know how serious this could have been?" he raged, genuinely panicked. "Can't you just leave your sister alone? You always cause trouble." In his fear, he seemed to have conveniently forgotten why Vivienne had come in the first place. Defeated, Mother called Vivienne. All day, the calls went unanswered. Then, late at night, Mother's phone rang incessantly. "Sister, were you looking for me?" Vivienne's voice, smooth as silk. "What do you want, Vivienne? Where are you? Let's talk properly. Are you asking me to come back? Is that it? Fine. Then I set the terms. Divorce him. And you leave with nothing but your daughter." Compared to my mother's frayed, anxious tone, Vivienne's voice was a light, silken thread. In the dead silence of the night, it sounded grotesque, like a death sentence whispered by a demon. It choked the remaining life out of my mother. As expected, Mother's capitulation led to divorce. She was forced out with nothing. My father, with performative kindness, said she could take me. "A mother and daughter belong together, I understand," he declared magnanimously. Forced out with nothing? Even at 12, I understood from overheard whispers and sideways glances. Vivienne wanted my mother gone, stripped of everything, including the substantial assets that were rightfully half hers. Mother could have fought, sued my father for bigamy, but she couldn't bear the thought of me having a tainted father. She chose silence, enduring the injustice for my sake. I wanted her to fight. I didn't care about my father's reputation. But she insisted I was too young, didn't understand the complexities. So, during the final mediation, before the judge, under my mother's stunned gaze, I chose my father. I did it to protect her. She couldn't leave with absolutely nothing. My refusal to go with her, denying Vivienne immediate control over my potential inheritance, forced my father back to the negotiating table. Mother finally received a small settlement, a fraction of what she deserved, but something. My courtroom drama clearly rattled Vivienne. Her perfect plan, disrupted by my sudden defiance, wasn't quite flawless. But she adapted quickly. "You can keep calling me Aunt Vivienne if you like," she told me later, magnanimous in her partial victory. "Or call me whatever you prefer. There are rules in this house." "Call her what you're supposed to," my father interjected, already thoroughly bewitched, defending his new wife at every turn. "Then Chloe can call me Mom, just like I do," Susan chirped, her eyes wide with faux innocence. After my mother was forced out, I witnessed the full extent of Vivienne's manipulative prowess. Mother truly hadn't stood a chance against this latecomer in understanding, or rather, controlling my father. Unlike mother's genuine concern as a wife, Vivienne treated father like a boss, expertly managing his moods, presenting her demands only at the most opportune moments. She was like boiling a frog slowly, step by step tightening her grip. Towards my father, she provided constant emotional validation. Towards me, relentless psychological pressure. She'd frequently stage displays of family warmth for father's benefit, then shower me with scorn and mockery the moment he was gone. Fortunately, understanding my situation, I learned self-control. When the pressure became unbearable, I found solace in secret visits with my mother. As long as she was there, somewhere, my life wasn't entirely bleak. For her, I found the courage to endure. Vivienne would age. I would grow up. Eventually, I would be strong enough to protect my mother. With this goal clear, I poured all my energy into my studies. I excelled, winning awards and various competitions. But soon, Vivienne, citing concerns for my health, began systematically cutting my extracurricular activities, piano, ballet, art. Without funds to pay the fees myself, I had to give up the things I loved. Susan, meanwhile, took my place, becoming the teacher's new, cherished pupil. Still, Vivienne worried I was overtaxing my brain. In my first year of high school, she took an uncharacteristic interest in my grades. Without my consent, she changed my academic track, switching me from my beloved humanities stream to science. "I'm doing this for your own good," she'd always say, smiling that chilling smile after delivering another blow. I watched her, noticing the faint crow's feet appearing around her eyes, but the malice there only seemed to sharpen with time. I knew she was only holding back slightly because she hadn't yet secured the ultimate prize. 6 months after starting high school, the news finally came. "Chloe," Susan announced gleefully, "I'm going to have a baby brother." This time, she didn't even pretend with we. It was just, I am getting. Having been away at boarding school, I only then learned Vivienne was over 7 months pregnant. Despite being an older mother, she had meticulously managed the pregnancy. The baby was securely on its way. Shortly after learning about the pregnancy, I visited my mother over a weekend. After the divorce, using her settlement, Mother had bravely started a new life, launching her own small business. Though it couldn't compare to Father's wealth, it was a quantum leap from her previous life as a dependent housewife. She was still gentle, but some of the light had gone out of her eyes. "Mom," I ventured, something I'd thought about for a long time but hadn't dared voice. "It's been years. If you meet someone suitable, you could remarry, you know." Now, with Vivienne about to solidify her position with a son, my own plans to eventually oust them felt increasingly futile. Vivienne was winning. "I'm tired, honey." "I'm not looking," Mother stroked my face lovingly. "When you get into university, maybe you can start dating. Mom will help you vet them." "I don't want to date." "I'll just stay with Mom forever," I mumbled shyly, burying my face in her embrace, cherishing the rare moment of warmth. As dusk fell, I said goodbye. She stood behind me, waving, calling out, "Be careful crossing the street." Just as I turned away, I saw a familiar pregnant figure enter my mother's shop. 3 minutes later, my mother burst out, tears streaming down her face, utterly distraught. Her vision blurred by grief, she stumbled into the street. I spun around, running towards her, but it was too late. A sickening thud, the screech of tires. My mother sobbing abruptly ceased. Further down the street, Vivienne stood, hand resting on her swollen belly, watching the scene with a chillingly blank expression. 6 years later, gazing up at the gleaming Thorn Tower, a slow, satisfied smile spread across my face. I'd been back in the city for a week but hadn't contacted anyone. I was no longer the orphaned girl grieving her mother. I was a Yale graduate with an MBA. I'd turned down lucrative offers in the US to return here. All for a man I'd never met. He was Vivienne's chosen, golden son-in-law. I'd heard she'd been arranging contact between him and Susan for ages, just waiting for Susan to graduate before finalizing the engagement. This man was shrouded in mystery. My research yielded little. I knew he was connected to the province's largest conglomerate, Thorn Corporation, and was a year older than me. Vivienne, I thought, touching the cool glass of the building entrance, my mother suffered greatly. It's time your daughter had a taste of that. I located one of my father's old business rivals. With his help, I secured a clean identity and passed the initial interviews for a position at Thorn Corporation. Ms. Chu, please wait a moment. The president's meeting will conclude in about 30 minutes. Today was the final interview for the position of president's secretary. Behind the polished door sat my final interviewer, Vivienne's prized catch, Susan's future fiancé. Since giving birth to my half-brother 6 years ago, Vivienne's position as the lady of the manor was seemingly secure. Susan had become the pampered heiress. All that was missing was a suitably prestigious marriage for her. As for me, because I wasn't yet 18 when my mother died, my inheritance was placed under my father's guardianship. Vivienne had me sent abroad for further studies almost immediately, effectively penniless. I lost not only my mother, but even my father's surname, forced to take my mother's. My sister passed too soon. Vivienne had explained sweetly, we must keep her memory alive. Just like that, I was erased from the line of succession. Stranded in a foreign country, without even a high school diploma, I washed dishes in Chinatown to earn money for preparatory courses. For 6 years, I contacted no one. Naturally, no one contacted me. Vivienne had no idea that. Thousands of miles away, I was constantly thinking of her. In recent years, father's business, despite appearances, had become increasingly precarious. I'd planned to wait until my own foundation was stronger before returning. But now, checking the time, I stood and walked towards the executive pantry. When I returned with a freshly brewed coffee, the door to the president's office clicked shut. I knocked. Enter. A pleasant male voice responded. Mr. Thorne, good morning. I'm Chloe Chu, here for the final interview for your secretary position. I placed the coffee cup on the expansive desk. The man didn't look up. I studied his face discreetly. He looked young, remarkably so, yet radiated an aura of absolute authority. Honestly, Vivienne had good taste in men. But was someone like Susan, a delicate, somewhat vapid flower, really his type? He continued reviewing his documents, ignoring me completely. After a long moment, he tapped the coffee cup lightly with a fingernail and finally looked up. I dislike subordinates who take initiative without instruction. His tone was cool, clearly a dismissal. It's Wednesday. You usually prefer Blue Mountain. I began, keeping my voice steady. However, I don't have access to your private cabinet key, so I selected the best beans available upstairs. This is mantling. Excellent for focus. Rumor had it Thorn Corp was in intense acquisition talks with Sodalite Chemicals. The stock market was volatile. He must have been working around the clock. You may leave. This time, he scrutinized me properly, his gaze sharp and assessing. As the door closed behind me, I caught a glimpse of him lifting the cup to his lips. A slight smile touched my own. My interview might have gone better than expected. Just as I was congratulating myself on this small victory, a delayed email threw my entire plan into chaos. Chloe, I'm so sorry. I sent you the wrong photo. The hacker I'd hired was profusely apologetic. Staring at the smiling, utterly unfamiliar face on my screen, my blood ran cold. If this man was my intended brother-in-law, then who had I just met? The answer came quickly. Hooked a minnow, landed a shark. Vivienne's ambitions weren't quite that grand. Her target wasn't the current head of Thorn Corporation, Damon Thorne, but his nephew, Julian Thorne. Julian, I learned, had lost his mother young and been caught in a brutal family inheritance battle, nearly cast aside. Fortunately, he had a formidable uncle. Damon Thorne, then only in his 20s, had not only secured Julian's maternal inheritance, but had also systematically taken control of Julian's late father's company, gradually absorbing it. Because of this tumultuous past, Damon was fiercely protective of Julian, shielding him from the cutthroat business world. Julian held a less demanding position within the company, known for his kindness and gentle nature. The face from the interview flashed in my mind. Damon Thorne. Decisive, sharp, radiating, do not mess with me. Damn it, I cursed inwardly. He looks so young for his age. If he actually looked like an uncle, I wouldn't have made this blunder. Well, the move was made. The only option now was to stay in the company and adapt. Over the following weeks, I carefully cultivated an image, competent in my duties, but slightly inept socially, occasionally making minor, harmless errors. While doing so, I secretly gathered information on Julian Thorne. This time, I made no mistakes. Fortunately, Julian also worked at Thorne Corp, albeit in a different department. My calculated clumsiness quickly eroded Damon Thorne's initial flicker of interest. A week later, I received a notification from HR. Ms. Chu, effective tomorrow, you will no longer serve as the president's secretary. However, if you accept a transfer, you may remain with the company. I had to stay. Swallowing my pride, I accepted a lower position, patiently working my way up, constantly monitoring internal transfer opportunities. Through a series of promotion exams, I finally achieved my goal, assistant to Julian Thorne, director of the marketing department. The official transfer order arrived from HR. Nephew-in-law, you certainly are hard to get close to. And so, I became Julian Thorne's assistant. Professionally, I was impeccable. Socially, I continued to make occasional, inconsequential blunders. Your family must have protected you very well, Julian remarked one day after I fumbled a social cue at a client dinner. You don't seem adept at reading situations. I'm sorry, Director Thorne. It won't happen again, I replied, looking downcast, feigning embarrassment. But Julian, true to his kind nature, wasn't angry. He even comforted me. It's all right, Chloe. You don't need to attend these kinds of networking events anymore. I started to protest, but he gave me an affirming look. Everyone has their strengths. Don't worry about it. He really was sheltered, wasn't he? Completely oblivious to my manipulations. My persona of the brilliant but socially awkward employee solidified. In today's data-driven world, uncovering Julian's preferences wasn't difficult. Research suggests that our ideal partner often embodies qualities we admire but feel we lack ourselves. Through relationships, we subconsciously seek to complete these perceived deficiencies. I wasn't sure if Julian would merely settle for Susan, but winning his genuine affection for that arranged marriage would be challenging, especially now that I was carefully crafting myself into the embodiment of his dream girl. Late autumn arrived, casting a bleakness over the cemetery. Standing before the headstone, the wind tugged at my coat. My mother's face on the photograph was still beautiful, forever silent. Chloe? Is that you? My father's voice startled me from behind. The eye drops I'd applied earlier worked perfectly, a stinging sensation, followed by well-timed tears. Dad? I turned, feigning shock, removing my sunglasses. The man before me bore little resemblance to the commanding figure of my memory. He was paunchy now, his hair thinning. Proximity truly does rub off. He was starting to resemble Vivienne. When did you get back? Why didn't you contact me? His tone held no warmth, only annoyance. If you hadn't changed your number, you would have received my messages, I replied coolly. I had tried contacting him from the US, but Vivienne always answered. Your father's resting. Call back later. Then the number went dead. He'd likely fallen completely under her spell, oblivious to my struggles. Let's not dwell on the past, he said, forcing an awkward smile. We're still family, after all. Since you're back, you should come home for a visit. Is there still a place for me in that house? The person who cared most about me is right here, I countered, gesturing towards my mother's grave, my voice thick with manufactured grief. Your mother's passing was sudden, he said quickly, but the driver responsible was punished. Chloe, you need to look forward, not live in the past. Was Mom's death really just an accident? I stared directly at him, forcing him to confront the memory. Of course. What else could it be? His gaze shifted evasively under my scrutiny. Well, actually, he stammered, when your aunt was pregnant, I was stressed. I visited your mother a couple of times. Vivienne. Found out, misunderstood. He sighed. She was pregnant, sensitive. She confronted your mother. They argued. Your mother just had such a temper, stormed out of the shop, and then the accident happened. He recounted it so casually, a few sentences absolving everyone, sealing my mother's fate as a mere tragedy caused by her own supposed anger. The image of her being struck, vivid in my memory, resurfaced, sharpened by his self-serving narrative. My fists clenched inside my coat pockets. Though I'd anticipated this, hearing the dismissal of her death from his own lips still sent a shard of pain through me. Half a month ago, I'd bribed the fortune teller my father frequently consulted. I instructed him to exaggerate recent business misfortunes, linking them directly to my mother's unjust death. You must sincerely repent at your ex-wife's grave on the anniversary of her passing, the fortune teller had declared ominously. Otherwise, even my rituals cannot appease her spirit. This charade had forced my father's reluctant pilgrimage today. I'd waited nearly all day, needing to hear his version of the truth. Dad, I'd like to stay with Mom a little longer, I said softly. Could you leave me your number? I'll contact you. All right. Since you're back, come visit when you have time. He left his business card and walked away without a backward glance. His words confirmed my deepest suspicions. Vivienne was involved in my mother's death. Mom, I whispered to the cold stone, I will get justice for you. My gaze lingered on her photo, my resolve hardening. It didn't take long for my father's call to come. I had remained quiet, letting him make the first move after our cemetery encounter. What exactly are you doing now? Tell me clearly. His voice crackled with anger over the phone. Last night, at a gala hosted by Thorn Corporation, I had seen him arrive with Vivienne and Susan, all dressed to the nines. And they, of course, had seen me, standing beside Julian Thorn. The fire in Vivienne's eyes when she saw us together was unmistakable. I'm not doing anything, Dad. Just working at Thorn Corp, I replied innocently. Two could play this game. Find another job. I'll arrange something easy for you. Dad, this is my first job after graduation. I'm doing well. Why should I quit? I'm your father. Would I harm you? He emailed me an offer letter. I opened the attachment. It was for a position at an obscure subsidiary, miles away from the core business. Dad, it's not that I'm dissatisfied, I said meekly, feigning reluctance when we spoke again later. It's just, I don't dare. I pushed the implied offer aside. After you changed my surname, I stopped expecting anything. I let my voice tremble slightly. You asked why I didn't contact you when I returned. Honestly, I was afraid you'd be ashamed of me. I forced a shy, bitter smile. Your status now is so much higher than when I was a child. Even the smallest rumor could affect the company's stock price. I embellished his paranoia, framing his attempts to sideline me as benevolent. Concern I was unworthy of. Dad, I know I can't compare to Susan. I just want to rely on myself, build something step by step. His vanity sufficiently stroked, my father softened slightly. Where are you living now? I should be able to see you when I miss you. Even if I wasn't his employee, he still needed to feel in control. Temporarily in the company dormitory. You haven't said anything inappropriate, have you? Hearing I lived with potential colleagues immediately put him on alert. Seeing his growing anxiety, I offered an escape. No, most employees here are local. Right now, I'm the only one staying in the dorm. I see. He paused. Didn't your mother have a small apartment somewhere? You should clean it up and move back there. That very night, my caring father gave me the keys. Within a week, through some legal maneuvering I initiated, citing my status as sole heir to my mother's minimal assets, the temporary arrangement became permanent. Ownership. I had Vivienne to thank for making my father so easily manipulated over the years. And Susan's extravagant spending habits certainly helped. A property worth millions seemed like pocket change to him now. That weekend, I secretly moved my mother's ashes to my grandparents' old family courtyard house in the countryside. A storm was brewing for the Wang family. I wouldn't allow Vivienne's potential fury to touch my mother's final resting place. The old courtyard wasn't overgrown as I'd expected. Someone had clearly been tending to it. After asking around, I found the kind neighbor who had been looking after the place. After settling my mother's urn, I visited them with gifts. Your grandparents were wonderful people, the elderly man reminisced fondly. We always remembered their kindness. As I was leaving, he added casually, by the way, did that child your grandparents adopted ever find her birth parents? The baby girl left on their doorstep? He shook his head. It was right after your grandmother lost her own baby. She couldn't bear to give the foundling away. The drive back was a blur. My mind reeled. Vivienne, the viper who had stolen her sister's husband, was adopted? Abandoned? Repaying kindness with treachery, I thought bitterly. So I'm the granddaughter of the foolish man who warmed a frozen snake. The company announced a team-building retreat. Julian invited me to join. In the break room, my female colleagues buzzed with excitement. I heard the big boss, Damon Thorne, might be there. I need to look stunning. I swear he must drink formaldehyde. He looks younger than some 20-year-old celebrities. A rich, single alpha male like that. I just want to devour him. They chattered excitedly, stars in their eyes. For me, however, this was potentially disastrous news. After my initial blunder, I was wary of Damon Thorne. He wasn't naive like Julian. He could navigate corporate warfare and somehow defy aging. He was the feared tycoon, the protective uncle, and most importantly, the ultimate authority at Thorne Corporation. My plan to secure Julian at this retreat suddenly felt precarious with Damon potentially observing. He was an unpredictable variable. Luckily, fate intervened. A problem arose with a major client, and Damon flew out overnight to handle the crisis. At the meticulously planned retreat, I was, as orchestrated, paired with Julian for the group activities. Horse riding, archery, charades. After each game, the trust and admiration in Julian's eyes grew. Especially after the compatibility quiz, where I'd conveniently seen the questions beforehand, the budding romance between us was palpable. "Are you two cheating?" Other teams grumbled good-naturedly. I just wrote down my own preferences. I protested innocently, hands raised in mock surrender. It's purely coincidence. Julian dazedly accepted the winner's trophy, while I mentally collected my prize, his heart, teetering on the edge. That evening, around a bonfire on the beach, music played, and people began to dance. "Do you have a boyfriend?" Julian asked, his arm tentatively around my waist as we swayed, his hand respectfully placed, his eyes a mixture of hope and nervousness. "Director Thorne, are you investigating office romances?" I deflected, not giving a direct answer, letting the ambiguity fuel his infatuation. But I added softly, leaning slightly closer, if having a secret crush counts, then yes, I suppose I do. Just as the music faded to a perfect stop, I left him with that heavily suggestive remark hanging in the salty air. Later, back in my seaside cabin, the playful facade dropped. I intently studied the information on my phone. Faded adoption papers confirmed it. Vivienne was indeed adopted, and seemingly, she had known for a long time. "You truly are rotten to the core," I muttered aloud, scrolling through the documents. "Did you want the whole world handed to you on a platter? And you? What do you want, Chloe?" A deep male voice sounded from behind me. I slammed my phone screen off just in time. Damon Thorne stood in the doorway, a knowing smirk playing on his lips. He looked me up and down, just as he had during our first meeting. "Mr. Thorne." My heart hammered, but I kept my voice steady. "Over the years, plenty of women have tried playing games with us," he said, walking slowly towards me. Even in casual clothes, his presence was imposing. "I have to say, you're uniquely disloyal." He stressed the last word meaningfully. That old fox. He'd seen through my act from the start. Explanations would only dig a deeper hole. "How many years will you have to work here to pay back your Yale tuition?" Damon stood directly in front of me now, looking down. He was tall, easily 6 feet 2 inches, his chin level with my forehead. He pulled an envelope from his pocket and tapped it lightly against my head. "Plane ticket and a check. In exchange for your resignation letter. Fair trade." His lips brushed my ear as he spoke, the words simple, yet ruthless. "Game over, little girl." My plan disrupted, I had no choice but to temporarily retreat. I didn't submit my resignation. Instead, I forged a medical certificate and requested an extended leave of absence from Julian, citing health reasons. I used this forced downtime to focus on another crucial task. Though physically absent, I kept close tabs on Julian. During my months at the company, I'd cultivated a network of eyes and ears. Any significant move Julian made, I knew almost immediately. As my carefully constructed image took root in Julian's mind, Vivienne finally lost her patience. She orchestrated a formal meeting between the Thorne and Wang families. At the tense dinner, Julian maintained a polite but strained composure. Damon looked utterly bored. "Julian, dear, I hear you've been so busy lately. Susan can barely get hold of you, Vivienne began, attempting to control the narrative. Susan pouted beside her. Logically, since you and Susan have known each other so long, perhaps it's time to take the next step. Why the rush, Mrs. Wang? Damon drawled, ever the provocateur. I heard your daughter's graduation is delayed again. Shouldn't you two be more concerned about that? Damon, my friend, times have changed, my father interjected smoothly. Let the children decide what they want. We shouldn't interfere too much. Despite his bluster, father was clearly deferential to Damon. There was an understanding between our families, Damon conceded coolly, but if your daughter's qualifications are lacking, perhaps she and my nephew aren't destined to be. Faced with Damon's blatant disdain, Vivienne and my father could only manage forced, awkward smiles. The meeting ended in their defeat. After the Wangs departed, Julian visibly relaxed. Kid, Damon said, clapping him on the shoulder, if you don't like her, just say so. You can't choose your parents, but you sure as hell can choose your woman. Uncle, Julian admitted quietly, I don't really connect with Miss Wang. Over the past months, forced proximity had revealed Susan's true colors. Her superficial accomplishments and lack of substance couldn't fool someone like Julian, who came from genuine old money and possessed quiet intelligence. Her attempts at sophistication seemed clumsy, almost laughable. Fine, it's your life, Damon shrugged. As expected, after receiving his uncle's implicit blessing, Julian's messages to me shifted from polite concern to open longing, growing more intense each day. Seizing the moment, I reappeared. At the sprawling tennis club, Julian was on court with Susan. The skill disparity was obvious. Julian looked bored. I walked onto an adjacent empty court with a male companion I'd arranged to meet there. Julian spotted me instantly, completely missing a relatively easy shot from Susan. Chloe? You're supposed to be recovering. Why are you here playing tennis with him? He intercepted me, his eyes darting between me and my companion. When a gentleman falls, even manners are discarded. Excuse me, director. This is my personal time, I replied politely, stepping past him. But just before starting my game, I glanced back. The anger in Julian's eyes morphed into surprised hope. His feelings were laid bare. A touch of jealousy is always the best catalyst. While my companion and I played, Julian couldn't return a single decent shot. Susan wasn't stupid, she saw what was happening. After years of considering herself Julian's de facto fiancé, she couldn't tolerate the humiliation. She caused a scene on the court, demanding to know who I was, even throwing her racket towards me in a fit of rage. Julian, abandoning all pretense of politeness, argued fiercely with her. Feigning shock and fear, I allowed my companion to escort me off the court. Talk to me. Outside the clubhouse, Julian caught up, grabbing my arm, refusing to let go. He pulled me into his car and drove aimlessly, the silence thick with tension. Director, please drop me at the next subway station. I want to go home. What's wrong? I sent you so many messages. Why didn't you reply? Julian sounded panicked, desperate. Are you faking illness, ignoring me? Taking leave all because of him? Is he so important you'd throw away your job? His words were about work, but the car reeked of jealousy. I don't like having rackets thrown at me, I said quietly. The simple statement made Julian flush with shame. I'm sorry about today. If we keep seeing each other, things like today will happen again, I interrupted softly. I'm just an ordinary person with no powerful connections, director. But I still have my dignity. I turned my head away, towards the window, and let out a small, choked sob. Your head, did it hit you? Let me see, Julian pulled over, his concern overriding everything. He reached out, wanting to check for injury. We're not from the same world, I whispered, pulling back slightly. Before, it was all just my foolish fantasy. I'm awake now. I'll let it go. The more guilt he felt, the stronger my position. As expected, Julian began pouring out the details of his entanglement with Susan, unprompted. There's nothing serious between us, he insisted. It was arranged years ago by my mother, business ties between the families. I only really got to know her recently. Honestly, Chloe, we don't get along at all. The rumors are all nonsense. I swear. I offered a small, sad smile, full of weary self-deprecation. Sometimes silence speaks volumes. He grew more agitated, desperate to convince me, practically. Reciting his bank account details by the time he dropped me home. This guy, I thought, is almost too easy. If I were Damon Thorne, I'd be guarding him 24/7. That night on the beach, Julian couldn't help himself, finally stepping fully into the trap. The person you said you had a crush on, do I know them? Does it still matter now? I murmured, stepping out of the car, offering only my retreating back against the night wind. Mere infatuation wasn't enough to bind Julian completely. I needed one final, decisive blow. Vivienne, meticulous as she was, would soon figure out I was the woman at the tennis club. Time was running out. Someone else needed to make their entrance. Outside the prison gates, a man limped along, muttering curses under his breath. Quinn. I followed him at a distance in my car. Which leg did he use, I wondered idly, when he pressed the accelerator, aiming for my mother. Soon, a car pulled up beside him. He got in. The license plate was instantly recognizable, seared into my memory. Vivienne's car. A few minutes later, Quinn emerged, carrying a heavy black duffel bag. It looked cumbersome. He struggled to lift it, finally hoisting it onto his shoulder. Rich bitch, he spat, presumably referring to Vivienne. Generous, though. Unfortunately for Quinn, the money didn't stay warm for long. A staged gambling setup, orchestrated by me, quickly relieved him of his payout. Misfortune piled on. The loan sharks he owed money to from before his prison stint conveniently caught up with him. They showed no mercy, beating him savagely. Stop. Please. I'll pay. I'll pay. Quinn gasped, bloody and barely conscious. Quinn, the lead thug sneered, kicking him contemptuously. You used to say that, and maybe we believed you. Back when you were the hottest gigolo around. But now? Lame, ugly. What are you gonna pay us with? Please, boss, just 3 days. Quinn pleaded desperately. I have an old flame. She's rich now. She'll help me. She has too. Huh. What rich woman is blind enough to give you money now? Quinn spat blood. I killed for her once, he choked out. If she doesn't remember the favor, she'll damn well fear my mouth. It's true. You know I did time. It was for her. I pretended to be drunk driving, but I knew exactly what I was doing. Hiding in the alley, waiting for that woman to come out, ran her down. I clicked off the recording pen hidden in my pocket. I couldn't listen anymore. If this were just a story, I could press pause. But it wasn't. Vivienne Chu, I swore silently, the name tasting like venom. I swear I will make you suffer 10,000 times what my mother endured. It was the first time I'd used her full name, spouted out like a curse. Chu. She didn't deserve that name. She was nothing but an ungrateful, abandoned viper. Julian, apparently truly smitten, contacted me soon after, proudly announcing he had officially broken things off with the Wang family. Really, Chloe, I swear, Susan and I are just ordinary friends now. Will you be my girlfriend? To make my previous actions believable, I had to play the part. I agreed. Only after we started dating did I discover I was apparently Julian's first serious girlfriend. If I do anything wrong, he'd say earnestly, just tell me. I'll work hard to change. For a moment, I hesitated. He was innocent in this. My methods felt despicable. But the brief flicker of guilt was quickly extinguished by the burning need for vengeance. To avoid office gossip, I asked Julian to transfer me to a different role, further removed from him. But his devoted attention still made our relationship an open secret. So, when Damon Thorne appeared before me again one afternoon, I wasn't entirely surprised. There was even a flicker of anticipation in my eyes. I warned you, he stated flatly, sounding like a disappointed parent. Despite knowing his age and status, looking at that infuriatingly youthful face made it hard to take the elder act seriously. I'm sorry, Uncle, I replied, deliberately using the formal term, hoping he'd take the hint and back off. Matters of the heart are hard to control. Don't mess with my nephew. He's been hurt enough. What? I thought incredulously. And I grew up unscathed? Julian, at least, has you protecting him. What did I have? I bit back a sharp retort. His brain is fried, Damon continued unexpectedly, shifting gears. He can't keep up with you. You'll get bored quickly. He was actually insulting his own nephew. The one who can play this game with you, isn't him. His words were cryptic. He left without further explanation. Puzzled, I headed to the underground parking garage. As I settled into my car and buckled the seatbelt, a voice rasped from the back seat. Don't move, or I'll slit your throat. A blade pressed against my neck, cold and sharp. In the rearview mirror, Quinn's eyes were icy cold and unusual, utterly different from the desperate man in the recording. He gave me directions to a remote location. My heart hammered against my ribs. My bag, containing my phone and pepper spray, had been tossed into the back. Driving was my only option. Look, you just want money, right? I can give you more. We can negotiate. Heh. I'm already a dead man walking. Money doesn't matter now. Quinn sounded chillingly resigned. Had Vivienne given him everything? Why did he seem determined to die, taking me with him? Did he know who I really was? As my mind raced, a car suddenly swerved from a side street, slamming violently into the rear passenger side where Quinn sat. The impact deployed my airbag, shielding me. The knife flew from Quinn's hand, puncturing the passenger side airbag. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard a familiar voice shout my name. Chloe. Then, strong arms pulled me from the wreckage into a warm embrace. My vision blurred, but I looked up. It was Damon Thorne. Quinn was critically injured. He lingered in the ICU for 15 days before succumbing to his injuries. His death was officially ruled the result of gang retaliation following his release from prison. Case closed. There was no foul play, Chloe, Damon told me later, his face grim. He was deeply comatose from the moment he arrived at the hospital. His words dashed my hopes. Was this fate? The recording wasn't enough for court, especially since Quinn never explicitly named Vivienne. The truth was right there, yet I couldn't expose it. After the incident, Julian became even more protective, treating me like fragile treasure. He showered me with affection, even taking me to his childhood friend's wedding, formally introducing me as his girlfriend. A bigger surprise awaited. The bride turned out to be a senior from my Yale days. She recognized me immediately. Chloe, you were always so brilliant. Why are you? Her unfinished question hung in the air. Julian beamed, his eyes filled with adoration. I knew then I had him completely ensnared. A fallen phoenix, I murmured later to Julian, playing on his sympathy. Does anyone care if her feathers still shine? He knew some details about my family situation by now, feeling a kinship due to his own past struggles. This weekend, he said, taking my hand, his warmth spreading through me. Let's go visit your father. Reason screamed at me to stop, but the demon of revenge urged me onward. The appointed day arrived. Julian and I showed up at my father's house unannounced. Vivienne dropped all pretense of aristocratic composure, yelling insults in front of the staff. Julian, indignant on my behalf, started arguing. With her. Susan cried. Vivienne shrieked. My father looked utterly defeated. I watched the chaotic scene unfold, a silent, manic laughter bubbling inside me as the three of them performed like clowns in their self-made circus. Chloe Chu, have you no conscience? Stealing your own sister's boyfriend. Vivienne shrieked, clinging to her narrative regardless of the truth. Aunt Vivienne, I replied, my voice dripping innocence. When Julian and I met, I had no idea about Susan. Besides, Dad knew I was working at Thorn Corp from the beginning, didn't you, Dad? I deftly pulled my well-meaning father into the fray. Vivienne glared daggers at him. His awkward, guilty expression betrayed him instantly. Vivienne turned her fury on him, the argument escalating. Tired of their squabbling, I gestured to Julian, suggesting we leave. Just then, a small boy ran out, trying to pull Vivienne and my father apart. Mommy, Daddy, stop fighting. He was crying pitifully, tears streaming down his face. It was the first time I'd seen Vivienne's son, my half-brother. I hadn't given him much thought before, but now, looking at him, something clicked. His short-cropped dark hair was noticeably sprinkled with white strands, premature graying. Neither my father nor Vivienne had this condition, and my later research confirmed Vivienne's birth parents didn't either. Wait, there was someone who did. Quinn. While the adults were distracted, I quickly knelt beside the boy. Hi, I'm Chloe, your sister. What's your name? While talking softly, I casually ran my hand through his hair several times. By the time Vivienne noticed and rushed over protectively, I had what I needed, a few strands of his hair. That afternoon, I visited the auto repair shop. The car Damon had crashed still sat in a corner, awaiting my decision on its fate. After searching carefully, I found it, strands of hair embedded in the damaged back seat upholstery. Quinn's hair. The same distinctive pale gray-white. Identical. This was getting interesting. While waiting for the DNA results, Julian introduced me to more of his family. Though estranged from my father, he was close to his paternal relatives, especially his aunt, Isabel Thorne. She had been instrumental in helping Damon secure Julian's inheritance years ago, essentially choosing her nephew over her own brother, Julian's father. At dinner, Aunt Isabel and her family seemed pleased enough with me. Learning I was academically gifted yet willing to work my way up impressed them. I responded modestly to their praise. "Julian is a good-hearted boy," Isabel remarked later, pulling me aside. "You'll need to help him navigate things." Her words were layered. I understood the subtext. They were impatient with Damon's continued control of the company, but couldn't challenge him directly. Julian, devoted to his uncle, was oblivious to this underlying tension. He genuinely didn't crave power, but his paternal relatives certainly wanted it back in their lineage. They wouldn't accept Damon, the brother of Julian's mother, retaining control indefinitely. A smart wife without a powerful family of her own, someone loyal solely to Julian, was exactly what they wanted. Ironically, my status as the disinherited daughter became an advantage. Just as things seemed to be falling into place, Vivienne arrived with Susan, crashing the family gathering. Julian had already briefed his aunts about my family situation, so Vivienne's initial accusations fell flat. "Mrs. Wang," Isabel said coolly, "matters of the heart are unpredictable. Besides, Chloe is also part of the Wang family by blood. Perhaps fate intends for her and Julian to be together, fulfilling my late sister-in-law's wishes. Let the children be." It was a polite dismissal, clearly stating the Thorne family's stance. "Oh, I know what you're thinking," Vivienne sneered, changing tactics. "Yes, my Susan might not be as accomplished as her dear sister, but at least my Susan has a clean reputation." She dramatically threw a stack of photos onto the table. "A while back, my dear niece here had a little accident. If it weren't for Julian's own uncle risking his life to save her, she wouldn't be sitting here chatting so pleasantly." The photos clearly showed the car crash scene. Despite the damage, Damon's license plate was visible. "Julian," Vivienne continued sweetly, her eyes glinting with malice, "you're so lucky to have the best uncle in the world. You must repay his kindness, risking his life for your girlfriend. What a debt of gratitude you owe him." Isabel Thorne's face paled instantly. Her gaze towards me became sharp, suspicious. I knew Vivienne wouldn't come unprepared. My initial panic subsided into resigned clarity. Perhaps because of the way Julian looked at me then, his voice small and uncertain. He asked, "Uncle Damon said he just happened to be passing by that day. That's true, right, Chloe?" Trust is a fragile thing, easily shattered by doubt and insinuation. The man who had defended me so passionately at dinner vanished the next day. In this age of constant connectivity, 3 days of silence was a loud, clear breakup declaration. Before I could even process the sorrow, someone sat down opposite me, offering unsolicited comfort. Wasted my time teaching him all these years. Didn't learn a damn thing from me, Damon Thorne grumbled, though his tone lacked genuine anger. Being wrongly accused doesn't feel good, does it? Take Uncle's advice. Forget that little brat Julian. He looked at me, his eyes holding only concern and certainty, no suspicion. "Don't pull the age card, Uncle," I retorted, refusing to grant him the satisfaction. "You're not even remotely my elder anymore, technically." "Not an elder? Then an equal." I turned, looking questioningly at his ridiculously handsome face. He sighed dramatically. "Fine, here's a gift." He produced a small box, dangling it in front of me. "You're being nice?" "I don't buy it. This old fox never did anything without a reason." A 20-year-old's face, 30-year-old's charm, 40-year-old's mind, 60-year-old's net worth. Thank God Vivienne hadn't aimed this high initially. If Damon had been my target, I might have been the one ensnared. Honestly, he shook his head, you understand everything when you're plotting against others, but when it comes to yourself. He trailed off, gently tapping the box against my head before pressing it into my hand. I opened it eagerly. Inside was a USB drive shaped like a car key. Seriously? I thought you were giving me a Ferrari. I complained, feigning disappointment, though my mind was already racing, desperate to see the contents. Just a Ferrari? Is that all you aspire to? Ignoring his teasing, I mumbled a quick goodbye, eager to unlock the drive's secrets. Behind me, the man watching me go pouted petulantly. TCH, kids these days have no taste. Am I not worth more than a Ferrari? I now held enough evidence to ruin reputations and ensure justice. But I wanted more than just retribution. I wanted a judgment day, a perfectly orchestrated hell scene they would never forget. The opportunity arrived sooner than expected. The Thorn and Wang families suddenly announced the engagement of their children, the ceremony set for just 3 days later. I wasn't upset by Julian's change of heart. Instead, I suspected Vivienne, cornered, had made another desperate, manipulative move. I needed to see Damon to confirm my suspicions. Strangely, since our last meeting, I'd subconsciously started viewing him as an ally. Yet, questions lingered. Even if he suspected foul play with Quinn, why crash the car instead of calling the police? A billionaire CEO. Risking his life for me? Isabel's suspicion was understandable. Even I couldn't fully grasp his motives. Could he really have feelings? For me? Chloe, stop projecting, I scolded myself. Not everyone falls in love that easily, especially not someone like Damon Thorn. Before I even reached his office, I heard his raised voice. Are you all idiots? You didn't even investigate properly. Why did you agree to this? He calmed slightly when he saw me enter. Before I could speak, he launched into a tirade about his useless, greedy relatives. It turned out that after meeting me, Julian's paternal family had indeed pressured him relentlessly, warning him away from the complicated woman. Depressed and confused, Julian got drunk. Susan, conveniently there to comfort him, ended up in his bed. The Wang family then demanded Julian take responsibility. Compared to this scandal-adjacent me, Susan seemed the marginally safer, albeit deeply undesirable, option. Isabel and the others pushed for the engagement to salvage appearances and secure their interests. Idiots, Damon repeated, disgusted. Does anyone really believe that was a coincidence? He'd seen through the setup, but his relatives, viewing him as their rival, wouldn't listen. Why are you so angry? I asked innocently. Worried about having to give an engagement gift? Damon actually chuckled. What scheme are you hatching now? No scheme, I said sweetly. I just want to attend the festivities. Be a supportive acquaintance. I asked him to get me into the wedding. With preparations so rushed, Vivienne would be paranoid. Without Damon's help, my only way in would be as a fly on the wall. You have a strong stomach, he observed dryly. Going to your ex-boyfriend's wedding? Can you even eat? Who said I'm going there to eat? I'm going to deliver some truths. It seemed the final act was about to begin. All right, consider it done. Let me know the details as soon as you get the invitation. I'm leaving now. I stood up to go. In a flash, Damon vaulted over his massive desk and caught me from behind, wrapping his arms around my waist. Just like that? Give your orders and leave. Damn, this old man moved like a panther. What? It's just attending a wedding. Don't tell me you expect me to cover the gift? That familiar, unsettling proximity made my nerves tingle. Well, Damon murmured, his breath warm against my ear, since so many people seem convinced we're a pair, perhaps we should give them what they expect. The wedding day arrived. The ballroom was packed. Everyone who mattered in the city was there. Most, undoubtedly, were there for the Thorn connection, not the Wangs. When Damon picked me up, I realized the evening gown he'd provided was deliberately chosen. Its color and style subtly complemented his own suit. No need to be too obvious, he'd said with a shrug when I pointed it out. Just us walking in together will set tongues wagging. Can't help it. Middle-aged men like showing off. Shameless. The more I knew him, the further he deviated from that initial intimidating image. Seeing the posed engagement photos at the entrance brought a sense of finality. Things were ending here. As expected, our entrance caused a stir. Damon, ever brazen, led me directly to the main family table. Isabel Thorn bristled, her polite words laced with disapproval, accusing him of being undignified for his age. Damon ignored her, retorting, "Women get chattier the older they get." Vivienne's eyes tracked my every move, terrified I'd disrupt her triumphant moment. Only when the ceremony neared its perfect conclusion did she visibly relax. To see my daughter married, she sighed, dabbing at crocodile tears, the picture of a loving mother. Susan, on stage, preened like a victorious hen. Julian remained stone-faced. Then, the MC changed tone, announcing a surprise guest. And now, a special gift from the bride's elder sister. In the stunned silence from Vivienne and my father, I took the microphone and stepped onto the stage. "No! Get her down!" Vivienne shrieked. Isabel's family members also moved to intervene. But suddenly, several guests in plain clothes moved swiftly, blocking their path. Isabel, experienced in power plays, understood immediately. Damon, this is your nephew's wedding day. How dare you humiliate him like this? It would be far more humiliating, Damon replied calmly, for him to unknowingly marry the daughter of a murderer. Vivienne looked electrocuted, trembling violently. What rumors have you heard? Did Chloe tell you lies? That girl hates us. You can't believe her. My father rushed to smooth things over. This marriage was crucial for his failing business. He'd apparently secured funding from Isabel's side by threatening to accuse Julian of something serious after the staged encounter. Without that injection of cash, his debt-ridden company would collapse entirely. Mr. Wang, Damon cut him off coolly. Perhaps you should listen to what your other daughter has to say. Gripping the microphone, I surveyed the sea of faces below, curious, shocked, intrigued. I had waited more than 6 years for this moment. The large screens, previously showing wedding footage, flickered. Images appeared, one after another. Vivienne's adoption papers. Susan's paternity test showing my father wasn't her biological father. Quinn's confession, audio snippets. Playing over his mugshot. And finally, compromising videos of Susan during her university days. In minutes, the audience witnessed the tangled, sordid history of two families spanning decades. The information overload was immense. Some laughed at my father's cuckolded stupidity. Some shed tears for my mother, for the orphaned girl sent away to struggle alone. Some cursed Vivienne's cruelty, exceeding even fictional villains. Many pulled out their phones, capturing the scandal of the century. My father, finally grasping the extent of the betrayal, lunged at Vivienne, slapping her repeatedly, screaming, "You bitch. You're illegitimate yourself, and you made me raise another man's bastard." Vivienne, stunned and bleeding, could only shake her head, babbling denials. I didn't hire him to kill her. I didn't. No one listened. Mr. Wang, Isabel announced icily, pulling a dazed Julian towards the exit. Your family is far too complicated. My nephew cannot possibly marry into this. Julian, the videos are fake. Don't believe her. Susan shrieked, clinging desperately to Julian's leg, her makeup smeared, her dress askew. Amidst the chaos, only Damon remained calm, shielding me from the escalating pandemonium. Disappointing, I teased him quietly. I thought you were going to make a grand announcement about us. Please, he scoffed lightly. Being called auntie by Julian? I'm not ready for that promotion. I knew what he meant, but I enjoyed provoking him. The wail of police sirens grew closer. The time for reckoning had arrived. The aftermath was swift. Vivienne, with no powerful allies left, was convicted of conspiracy to commit murder and sentenced to 20 years. Susan, her reputation destroyed and marriage prospects evaporated, descended into a cycle of paid companionship, eventually marrying an abusive older man for his money, her life reportedly marked by bruises. My father, his company collapsing after the Thorn funding vanished, was left with barely enough to survive. He did, however, finally show a spine, divorcing Vivienne, disowning Susan, and sending Vivienne's son back to Quinn's family. He seemed broken, ashamed, and never attempted to contact me again. I heard about their fates with detached interest, focusing instead on my own future. Because spectacular entrance, dramatic exit, Damon commented, leaning against my office doorway a few weeks later, resuming his daily campaign. Isn't it time for the next act in your life? The more time I spent with Damon, the more I learned. We weren't just Yale alumni. He had actually met my grandparents years ago, had dinner at their home. He'd recognized me the moment I returned, understood my motives, and had been subtly assisting me all along. My reputation is already shot, he sighed dramatically one evening. You might as well just take me off the market. In your dreams, I retorted playfully. You haven't even properly pursued me yet. I gave him a challenging look. What's wrong? Too old to even chase anymore. Before he could react, I snatched his car keys from the table and sprinted towards the red Ferrari parked outside. Little fox, he yelled after me, laughing. Just wait till I catch you. I'll show you what old can really do.